Opeth's new album is out and it's about family drama.
It's the Downton Abbey of Opeth. What we like to do for our tier rankings is only 2 S's. 1 S per person, and then from there we try to limit the A's, but then everything else is basically free range.
Thumbs up the video, really helps us out.
So let's kick it off. 1995, Orchid. This is not something that I would show a new fan to. Cover aside, this is definitely a really cool, unique for its time adventure into, you know, what would become like proggy, blackened death.
There's a lot of really, really great ideas here, but unfortunately, it's just riff after riff after riff. It's a lot of riff salad. I would say it's a great first effort from the band. You can tell where they're gonna go, but it's a little middle of the pack for me. That's why I have it in C tier.
Yeah, I have mine at B-, so basically right there with you.
Talk about the morning with Morningrise. This is where the band, I feel like, starts to kind of get their footing. Their songwriting is definitely quite a bit better on Morningrise. I love this record, especially in the fall time frame. It's not their pinnacle moments in terms of their songwriting, but I would say the playing's fantastic, and they accomplished a pretty complicated feat, which is writing a 20-minute plus song with Black Rose Immortal. I have this one at B.
I was late to the party for this one. I have this one at A. When I came into it, I was more familiar with their Deliverance, Blackwater Park era. So hearing this really kind of blew me away because you could hear that they were doing something a bit different. There's a lot of like folk and jazz influences on here, which
especially in the drumming.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And the bass playing is like one of my favorite things of all time. It's like this is number 1 or 2 is for me as far as like bass riffing, playing, etc., etc. I love this album. Solid A for me. It's just a really, really unique record.
A lot of people would agree with you. It's very, very good. My arms, your hearse. That's dark. Basically means like, I'll hug you when you're dead.
Dude, Demon of the Fall, like, forget about it, bro.
Every time we saw Opeth, they close their set with Demon of the Fall. And there's a reason. It's a banger.
I remember hearing that song for the first time and just being blown away. Like, it's one of those moments where you're like, this is not only just like an incredibly well thought out track, but it's like so fucking heavy, dude.
Yeah, it is. A really cool thing about this record, too, if you actually read the lyrics, is the last phrase or word on every song is the title of the next song.
Okay.
So kind of a cool, like, artistic thing that Michael did on the record, which I enjoy. I called this a little bit of a sleeper album in their discography, which I think it is. Front to back, it's an enjoyable listen. But again, not so much pinnacle moment of Opeth. We're talking about a band that is just master of what they do. Regardless of the record, even if you don't like it, it's still masterful. B tier for me.
Exactly. I'm right there with you, bro. Still life. I had to wear the shirt. I was digging through my treasure chest of shirts, and I was like, I gotta wear my Opeth shirt. This is
I'm wearing like a sports shirt.
This is where I think things started to kind of click.
Oh yeah,
for them.
This album is unbelievable. So again, with our criteria, if we were to have more than one S tier, this would be an album that I think would potentially make it for either one or both of us.
I think so, yeah.
Dude, Godhead's Lament by itself is one of the most incredible progressive death metal songs ever written. That lead where it's like goosebumps.
Yep.
Every single time. front to back, this is an album I will always revisit.
I know,
It
dude.
belongs in A tier for me.
Yes, mine is like A+. Got to put it at the top of the heap there, basically. Just get right into the next one, dude. I mean, fucking Blackwater Park, bro.
This is the album
it.
that got me into the band.
Yeah.
I remember picking this record up. I was at Newbury Comics and I just bought it on a whim. I was
Nice.
like, oh, the logo looks cool. The album art looks cool. I remember putting it in my CD player and being absolutely fucking floored. Very few albums have done this to me. Typo Negative is another band that has done this for me. Cruelty and the Beast. There are many of them. Look at our favorite metal albums. This is a very special metal record for me. To this day, it influences my playing, production decisions, just compositions in general.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. S tier.
When this came out, it was one of those watershed moments in the culture of metal where metal was still pretty underground in terms of like extreme
Yes.
metal. This became one of, if not the first extreme metal band in America to kind of take our generation by storm. And I will particularly put it in, you know, the folks who are in their 30s and 40s, because I cannot remember anything close to what Blackwater Park did in terms of like,
Changing the game.
yeah, changing the game, being on the tip of everyone's tongue for like months. Dude.
It was this, it was Necrophagist, like there were a lot of special records that came out in this era, like especially early 2000s, late 90s. This one would be on that top list for sure.
Yeah.
Deliverance.
This is my S tier.
I'm surprised. And
Yeah?
I don't blame you.
Wow.
I don't blame you. And in fact, you kick off Deliverance. You talk
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, dude, I just love this era so much, and I think that to come off of Blackwater Park, which is in itself just really a perfect record,
Easily.
to drop something as good as Deliverance. Now, granted, I'm definitely biased towards the title track. I don't think they've ever written anything quite as good, which is as complicated and as
I have
just like
goosebumps
groovy.
right now
I know.
thinking about that. Everybody is just banging their head,
Yeah.
and you want it to keep repeating. It repeats a lot.
Yeah.
I could have the whole album be that section.
Oh, dude, for sure. I just love this album. It's a bit of a sleeper. I mean, especially right up against Blackwater Park. This is my S tier for whatever reason.
I don't blame you. But now we're going to go soft with Damnation. I loved this album for a really long time, not only because it's Opeth, but also this was a time period where there were a ton of concerts in the New England area, and we were at the age we were always going to them. And this was the best album to put on after a metal show because it's chill. The songwriting's really good. It's memorable. It's kind of like comfort food in a way.
Dude, the palate cleanser. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's really, really good for that. Front to back, this album is absolutely stunning. Like the songwriting's incredible, the playing is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The vocal harmonies, like this was the start of like, oh wow, Opeth can write a whole clean album and it be some of the best material they've ever written.
Sure, yeah. They've always had this somber attitude on the outside of the doom sphere. They've never really like done the doom thing, but they've always had a very like melancholic, somber attitude. This one is like,
Super sad.
ooh, it's sad.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's sad. But it's
100%.
also super catchy in certain parts. There's hooks. There's unbelievable like harmonies with Michael's voice, and
Still want to trust in you.
this is a fucking awesome
I
album.
have it at A tier because it's that good.
Yeah, I have it at B+. So I mean, A is right about where it should be.
Now we're getting into the more proggy hints of where Opeth was going to go before the bomb on the metal scene that is Heritage.
Yeah.
Ghost Reveries is definitely starting to do that. You got the keyboards, are really prominent on this record. The Bang of Hounds alone is one of the best metal songs that they've ever fucking written. Like, that swing feel is just so good with the heaviness of it. This is an album that I think I will always go back to. I don't know why I don't revisit it more, but it's absolutely an A tier for me.
I love that. B+ for me. I have similar feelings to it. I think that this is really where the sweet spot between their extreme side and their prog side is.
Even more so on the next record, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
So Watershed in 2008, this was like where I think Opeth has really started to perfect that progressive heavy death metal sound. One of the things I really love is, like, if you listen to Heir Apparent, it is one of the heaviest fucking metal songs that Opeth has ever done. And it's in standard tuning.
On a 6 string, yeah.
Like, that's like the same shit that like classic metal records are like standard tuning. It's not down tuned. It's so unbelievably heavy, and I love that Michael wanted to basically pseudo prove that you don't have to down tune your guitar to play something that's unbelievably heavy. This whole album front to back is incredible. I have it at A tier. It deserves it.
Yeah, it's a strong B for me. It's definitely one that doesn't get a ton of replay, but there are easily some of their best songs are on Watershed for sure.
Yeah, they play a lot of tracks from this album live. There are a lot of Opeth fans that absolutely love this record and absolutely fucking hated it. I was one of the fans that went out on to see them during this tour. Mm-hmm. They played nothing from their heavier catalog. Were you at that show?
No, but I remember hearing all about it, and like people did not take kindly.
People were screaming at him and saying, "Play some fucking metal. This is bullshit. You guys sold out." I did not agree with how the crowd reacted.
Sure.
But that being said, I was in that camp for a while of not really liking it. But for some reason, I kept revisiting it because I am a diehard Opeth fan. It finally just clicked because it is evil as hell. It's super dark. There's a lot of like melancholic, somber moments, and it is heavy in the rhythm sense. Mm-hmm. And not so much in the distorted guitar sense. For me, I absolutely loved this record. This is my favorite of their like more so all prog sound. I have it at A tier. I'm gonna probably catch flack in the comments for that. I think it's great.
I got C+. So, I mean, I think we're going to have to do a little bit of arranging here.
We'll probably land it in B.
B-ish. Yeah, maybe the bottom-ish.
Yeah, we'll
B.
meet in the middle and go B.
You compel me now to want to go back and revisit it because there is a very, like, occult.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
It feels like you are in this like satanic sermon in the middle of the fucking woods and you're being converted. That's why I love it. You hit the nail on the head. And if you haven't revisited it, please do. When I saw them live on that tour, that was kind of the point. Like if you look at the album cover, it's like very much like old religious painting. And what I loved is they had this like two-tone thing with the lighting. So when the lights were on, it was basically the tree. But when it went dark, you had like devil faces in the tree, and it was like all like satanic imagery. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And the lyrics are very much in that vein too.
Well, I'm going to have to revisit this one just on this conversation here.
Pale Communion, the follow-up to Heritage. This was a cool album. I will give it that. There's some really cool, like the first song, Eternal Rains Will Come, I think. That with the 12-string guitar and like the really beautiful vocal melodies. That was a beautiful song on this record, but the rest of it for me just doesn't hit. It feels like B-sides from Heritage that just don't really work. Think it has some cool songs. It's a passable Opeth album. It's not bad, but I have it at C.
Yeah, I have it at like B-, so
Okay.
not like super great. I think that I guess coming into this, I would reach for this one over Heritage, although now I'm kind of...
Interesting. Pale Communion is a little heavier.
Right, yeah.
But I just think the songwriting on Heritage is better.
All things considered, I'm not like huge into prog. Like it's not really...
Me either. I just love Opeth.
I know, yeah, and that's and I understand that they're still the same band. What are your thoughts, just real quick, as a quick divergent, as a quick aside? Should they have kept the name?
I think it makes sense to keep it. The DNA of the band is you can follow it through. A lot of people are like, you should have just changed the name of the band or whatever. And I don't know. To me, when you look at the entire like catalog of the band, I love when bands decide to sidestep and nail it with a specific microcosm of the fan base. Because when you have that, I feel like you're making good art because you're pissing one group off, but you're making one group absolutely fall in love. And if you're not doing something like that, what the fuck are you doing? You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
This is an album where I love the title track. It's really cool. It's
That's
really
like
heavy.
the only song I like.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I have it at B. I think I probably weighted this one a little generously.
A lot of people really like this album because this was where like Opeth was starting to put a little more gain in the guitars again. There's a little more like rhythm and chugging and... Sorceress definitely pulls back into writing songs just to be like catchy and have a feel. Like Sorceress is a very much simple tune. To that point though, it's like I still feel like they're playing in that Heritage sandbox and not quite hitting the mark for me. So C.
I go with like a B- there.
In Cauda Venenum.
Thank you, Google, for
Yeah,
that. For
thank
your
you, Google.
awesome. Not into it, dude. I like that the way you put it. The Heritage Sandbox. The Heritage Sandbox came along, and as an Opeth fan, I was definitely interested. I'm like, oh, cool. They're doing the stuff that they grew up listening to.
Right, and
the
that's
stuff
cool.
that influenced them.
Yeah.
Not a lot of bands do that successfully. When they do, they either go back to what they were doing or they just kind of stay the course and they're like, yeah, this is what we do now. This is a miss, dude. This is a total miss because it just feels so familiar.
Way too like complicated just to be complicated. We use the word relentless a lot, and it is relentlessly complicated. I don't vibe with it, and it doesn't feel like Heritage at least had those moments of like it hooks you. This didn't really do that for me. I even tried again multiple times with this album, and I just did not like it.
So you have it in the D's. I got
D
I
tier.
got the C. I don't mind throwing in D. Dumpsters into the dumpster.
Now we're getting to the new album, The Last Will and Testament, which I love
There
how
it
you
is.
put it. The Succession death metal album. I think that's fucking hilarious.
I took it right from there. I'm pretty sure Michael himself admitted that they were watching a lot of Succession. It's like, yeah, well, I can, yeah.
Yeah, you can actually feel that vibe. Like not only in the album artwork, but just in like the weird ways that the vocals are written. There's a lot of spoken word sections. There's like vocal throws and like the left and right of the speakers and a lot of very cool, purposeful stuff is done to give that like image and narrative.
theatrical, yeah.
Very much so. And I love the spoken word sections they've got tons of guest musicians on this album too. Like they've got Joey from Europe. They've got
Ian Anderson.
Yeah, Ian Anderson. So there's a lot of really great callbacks to, like you said before, childhood love for the genre.
I'm sure Michael, when they got like the thumbs up that Ian Anderson was going to be on this album,
That's insane.
he probably like threw up. I'm sure that he loves every Jethro Tull album, and
yeah, you can hear it in the flutes on all of the proggy records.
Right. Yeah, and Ian Anderson not only does spoken word on here, he also plays his flute, and it's ridiculous.
It's really cool.
It's awesome.
Michael sounds some of the best he's ever sounded on this record, in my opinion. It's very visceral. You can hear the throatiness. For a while, when Heritage came out especially, there was this thing of like, he's trying to preserve his voice. He can't do it anymore. I love that he just decided to like come out swinging of like, I'm fucking here and I sound good. And that's cool as hell. It's neat that the band decided to do something heavy again in a way that would be completely unexpected for the fans.
It still has those proggy elements. They're absolutely there. Would you still put this in the Heritage sandbox, or do you think that they have kind of drifted to the borders?
They're not going to, it's not Watershed again. Okay. Not even close. I would say it's Heritage if it was written with death metal vocals and the gain was turned up higher. Which isn't a bad thing at all. No. I think there are moments on here that the riffs are slamming. And there are moments on here where it's like, oh, this sounds like what they did on Heritage. There's a lot of sophistication here. The playing is unbelievable. The new drummer is phenomenal. It's tough to follow up Axelrod. I mean, he's just an unbelievable drummer. Mm-hmm. Big shoes to fill, and he did a great job here.
Yeah, in comparison to the last album, this is an album that's complicated, but in a more digestible way. The musicianship is there in spades, dude. I really feel like this is an album that they have pushed themselves to the limits of their musicianship, and it comes through in a great way, and it's not sloppy. Everything is
it's unbelievable.
Performed really well, and ultimately, I don't know. This is probably going to be like one or two in their prog era for me. Like, I'm going to revisit this one.
So it's interesting you say that, right? Because Opeth is a band that, like, for example, Heritage took me months for me to actually love it. It's hard to give this album just an out-the-gate score. Mm-hmm. I would say take this with a complete grain of salt. Right now, I have this, like, probably around B tier.
Yep.
But there is definitely room for this to go up. It's tough because the review community, you want to get this stuff out when the album drops, but for a band like Opeth, there's a lot of room for fans to fall in love with records, and I think this is an album that's probably going to be in that boat for me.
Over time, this is going to age very nicely, especially compared to the rest of their discography. I think that this might be a really nice middle ground sort of album for somebody. I could show this to somebody and then show them Blackwater Park and be like, yeah, this is the same band, but here's kind of two extremes of what they've done, and then still, like, you get the idea that, like, holy shit.
What's your tier list for Opeth records? This is a cool band because everybody's is going to be quite a bit different. Mm-hmm. Leave it down in the comments below. Thumbs up the video, really helps us out.
Go with the gods, Forge mates. Make sure your last will and testament are up to date.